Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tearing apart the mechanisms behind an industry that seems built entirely on aspiration and secrecy. The world of luxury. Now, for you, luxury might mean many things. A classic Chanel jacket, maybe, or a vintage Ferrari, or perhaps just uninterrupted time with family.
And that diversity of meaning is important, absolutely. But for the purpose of this deep dive, uh, we are focusing squarely on products that require great expense and, communicate very specific signals of comfort and elegance.
Yeah, we're talking about the sector where the price tag itself is really a deliberate barrier to entry.
Exactly.
And we have to start with the fundamental why, because if we only look at the product, we miss the point, right? Luxury is rarely about utility.
No, not really. It's about signaling. It's driven by this almost primal human desire to be seen, acknowledged, and well-respected. These items function like status currency.
Status currency, I like that.
Yeah, think about it historically. Status currency was obvious. Crowns, specialized metals, rare silks, only worn by royalty.
Right, you knew who was in charge.
Precisely. And in our globalized, hypervisual world, the mechanism is fundamentally the same. The luxury product signals to society where you belong in the hierarchy, or at least where you aspire to be.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our goal isn't just to talk about expensive taste. Our mission today is to understand how these huge global brands, built on this very human desire, managed to build something so much bigger. And we're focusing on one key word: control.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
And to map that control, we first have to look at the foundation, what our sources often call the brand's aura.
Aura, okay.
To build and sustain this aura, you need three pillars. These are absolutely essential: desire, scarcity, and exclusivity.
Okay, let's start with desire. Our research terms this emotional incompletion. That sounds, well, it sounds less like market demand and more like psychological warfare.
Well, it is intentional. It's targeted conditioning. Luxury brands are masters at manufacturing the demand. They don't just wait for you to want something. They actively create an emotional gap.
How do they do that?
Think about how many brand campaigns feature a lifestyle, not just the product itself. They position, say, a specific watch or a piece of jewelry as the missing piece of a perfect identity. They literally make you feel incomplete without it.
So they offer themselves as the solution?
To a problem they basically manufactured in your mind, an identity gap.
Yeah.
The true desire isn't really for the craftsmanship, though that matters. It's for becoming the version of yourself who possesses that object.
Oh. That shifts the focus entirely from just quality to, like, personal transformation.
Exactly.
And that transformation process, according to the sources, is then accelerated by scarcity engineering. We're talking about temporal anxiety.
Correct. And this is far beyond just low stock notifications.
Yeah.
Temporal anxiety is about weaponizing the fear of missing out, FOMO.
FOMO.
It triggers the same neurological response you might get when you miss a significant life opportunity. Brands use limited releases, time drops. It makes the availability feel like a closing window for transformation.
So the message isn't really, there are only a few bags left in the warehouse.
No, the underlying message is the moment for you to step into this elevated version of yourself,
Yeah.
well, it expires soon. The scarcity is about the deadline for your identity change.
That makes perfect sense. If you desire it and you feel anxious about missing that window to get it, then you must prove you're worthy of it.
Which I guess brings us to the third pillar, exclusivity curation, or what the research calls social proof architecture.
Exactly. Exclusivity creates this undeniable visible membership hierarchy. This is where the aspirational outsider observes the validated insider.
Okay.
So if you receive exclusive access, like an early look or an invitation-only private sale, that access becomes public evidence of your worthiness, to your peers. This validation reinforces your social position.
While simultaneously advertising the brand's selectivity to everyone else still striving to get in.
More precisely, it's a self-reinforcing loop. So we have these psychological pillars: desire, scarcity, and exclusivity. The foundation is set. But the single word that makes all three truly operational is control. We need to see how brands execute that control at sort of three integrated operational levels: psychological, supply, and access. How do they physically ensure this manufactured desire holds up in the real world?
Okay, let's start with psychological control. This is what keeps that desire amplification running. It's about continuous conditioning. It talks about the gap created by advertising, but inside the brand's own sphere, they create these emotional dependency loops.
And a perfect example here has to be the unboxing ritual, right? The complex packaging, the tissue paper, the ribbon. It's designed to be slow, deliberate, almost theatrical.
Absolutely. It trains your brain to crave that anticipation sequence. It's basically Pavlovian conditioning, but for high-end goods.
Yeah.
And externally, the brand controls your environmental neural triggers. Think about controlled media placement. They don't just advertise, they ensure the product appears, seemingly organically, in success environments.
Like a celebrity photographed in a specific location with the product.
Exactly. Or a product mentioned subtly in a high-status conversation in a film. The goal is to make the desire feel entirely organic to you, the consumer, not like it was manufactured.
Okay, so that's the psychological side. Now let's move to supply control. This sounds like the engine for that scarcity engineering we talked about.
It is. And this is all about manufactured authenticity.
Yeah.
See, if scarcity is too real, it just frustrates the consumer and sends them elsewhere.
Right, the give up.
Engineered scarcity, however, feels rare enough to be precious, yet just attainable enough to keep you hooked. It's a fine balance.
And how do they manage that balance?
Well, it requires absolute sovereignty over the supply chain. Brands control every variable. They often own the workshops, they control material sourcing very tightly, and they manage release timing with almost like financial precision.
Okay.
But the ultimate control mechanism here, the one that truly flips the power dynamic, is the private allocation call.
That is fascinating. Can you elaborate on that? It seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does, but think about it. Instead of the brand trying to sell to the customer has to earn the right to purchase the most iconic items or limited editions.
You earn it how?
They often have to spend a certain amount on less desirable items first, demonstrate loyalty over time, wait patiently on lists. The purchase itself becomes validation. It confirms their status and their position within that brand hierarchy. That's ultimate control.
Wow.
And furthermore, this control extends to price signals. Things like strategic buybacks or carefully managed stock drops are specifically designed to maintain what they call the resale corridor.
Wait, why is the resale corridor so critical to supply control? That seems like a secondary thing.
Oh, it's crucial. Because the secondary market price, what that item is worth years later, is the real acid test for their engineered scarcity. If the item consistently sells above retail price on the resale market,
That proves their control is working.
perfectly. It proves their control over supply and desirability is spot on. But if they let that resale price drop, the aura gets damaged very quickly. So it's constant price health management.
That's brilliant, turning a simple sale into an earned privilege. But that level of gatekeeping requires serious control over who even gets in the door, physically or metaphorically. So how do they operationalize access control, the thing that fuels exclusivity?
Right. This is all about designing barriers that actually feel like achievements when you overcome them. The architecture of flagship stores is a prime example.
How so?
The minimalist design, often visually cold, sometimes even imposing, it acts as a kind of stress test. It's subtly designed to intimidate the casual browser, filtering them out.
While simultaneously validating this serious, dedicated customer who feels like they've successfully crossed the threshold into the inner sanctum.
Exactly. The architecture itself is like a velvet rope.
Ha! A velvet rope made of marble. And once you're theoretically in the club, there's this internal language. The logo-free recognition systems.
Precisely. Only the initiated, the true, validated members of the club can identify the luxury item without an obvious logo splashed across it. It creates this powerful, subtle insider language that reinforces exclusivity much more effectively than any big banner or sign ever could.
It's like shared knowledge's status.
That's a great way to put it.
Now, what's truly counterintuitive in the sources is this discussion of counterfeit goods. Are they really suggesting that fakes actually strengthen a brand? That seems like it would destroy the value.
It does sound absurd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the research suggests that fakes can play a crucial, albeit indirect, role in control by defining the perimeter of aspiration.
Okay, explain that.
By being widely copied, the original object's value is paradoxically reinforced. The fakes clearly mark what the brand is not. They serve as this external confirmation of the original item's desirability and its icon status, thereby reinforcing the value of the authentic controlled product for those who own it.
Okay, I can sort of see that. It defines the real by highlighting the not real.
Right. It sets the boundary.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that this whole control infrastructure operates across the entire business model, doesn't it? Product, geography, and organization.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, absolutely. We have to look at how they structure their entire product catalog to maintain both financial and psychological control. This is the control through product architecture, and it's often organized into a kind of three-level pyramid.
Okay, walk us through that pyramid.
Right at the very top, you have apex control. This is your haute couture, bespoke services, the most iconic, hardest to get items. Financially, these might even be loss leaders.
Really?
Often, yes. But their purpose is pure aura maintenance. They set the absolute highest tone and establish the brand's cultural authority. They're the dream.
Got it. Then we have the middle tier.
That's mid-tier control. Think ready-to-wear collections, the mainline products. These items amplify desire and are where aspiration converts into significant sales volume, but they still maintain high price points and a degree of exclusivity.
Okay, makes sense. And the financial backbone, the third tier.
That's base control. Accessories, perfumes, maybe diffusion lines. These are higher volume, relatively more accessible goods, and critically, they provide the financial resilience for the whole structure. This is where we see the famous lipstick effect really come into play.
Ah, the lipstick effect. Explain that for us quickly.
Sure. When economic confidence dips, consumers pull back from the really big purchases. They might stop buying the $10,000 handbag for a while.
Right.
But they often trade down to these accessible base items, maybe the $500 perfume or the branded scarf, as a way to maintain that aspirational connection, that feeling of consuming luxury.
So those smaller, high-margin sales.
They essentially bankroll the big, expensive runway shows,
Okay.
and the couture lines up at the apex. It ensures the brand's aura remains intact, and critically, it means they don't have to resort to painful discounts during a recession. That's price control durability right there.
That's how they keep the dream alive, financially, even when budgets get tight for consumers. Okay, moving on to geography. Control is also managed very carefully through geographic expansion, I gather.
Oh, very carefully. Luxury brands famously don't just expand by country, they expand by city. They focus on what you could call cultural node control.
Cultural node control.
Yeah, each major city, London, Shanghai, Dubai, New York, is treated as a specific cultural node. Each requires a unique calibration of the control mechanisms. They study local demographics, spending habits, cultural perceptions, everything, to ensure the aura lands correctly in that specific node.
And we definitely see that in expansion markets, particularly in Asia, maybe China, where the age curve for luxury purchases skews much younger than in, say, Europe.
Exactly right. And that's a very deliberate long-term recruitment strategy. By targeting younger consumers in these emerging markets, they're creating a lifetime customer trajectory. The idea is to ensure those consumers age into the higher tiers of the product pyramid over decades.
So it's about future-proofing the brand.
Absolutely. And this predictable, controlled growth is partly why luxury stocks often trade more like high-growth tech companies on the stock market. They're valued less on simple production volume today and more on that guaranteed brand equity and their proven scarcity control for the future.
Fascinating. Finally, then, we arrive at the internal control mechanisms, organizational systems. The control has to be baked right into the staff and the financial structure itself.
Internal governance is crucial. Staff incentives, for instance, are often built around what some call pay for integrity.
Pay for integrity. What does that mean in practice?
It means sales staff are often rewarded more for maintaining the brand's narrative, cultivating long-term client relationships, and preserving the store's atmosphere, not just for the volume of units they sell today.
So they're actively discouraged from aggressive sales tactics.
In many cases, yes, because that would dilute the aura. The focus is on the long game, the relationship.
That's such a fascinating inversion of standard retail thinking. It shows the true value is perceived to be in the relationship, the exclusivity, not just the immediate transaction.
It really is. And the control over financials is equally tight. These brands employ cash flow secrets, like requiring large prepayments for certain items or managing long wait lists strategically.
Which gives them cash up front.
Exactly. It provides phenomenal operational cash management and often enviable margins. It frequently allows them to finance expensive operations, like store builds or marketing, internally, without relying heavily on external debt.
And this brings us back to the overarching organizational structure and governance durability. We see two main models at play here. The massive conglomerates, like LVMH, versus the often family-owned houses, like Hermes or Chanel.
Right, and the ownership structure really dictates the long-term control strategy. Conglomerates are, driven by investor demands, quarterly growth targets, which can sometimes put pressure on maintaining that strict scarcity.
They need to show growth now.
Whereas the family houses,
Hmm.
they can afford to play the very long game. They can prioritize enduring legacy and aura maintenance, sometimes over rapid expansion or short-term profit maximization.
It's a different time scale entirely.
Completely.
So, for all this immense effort, all the psychological manipulation, the meticulous supply engineering, the architectural barriers, what is the ultimate objective measurement of their success? Where is the real report card for these multi-billion-dollar control systems?
Well, it isn't just their internal balance sheet or their quarterly earnings report. The ultimate metric, according to our sources, is external, it's visible, and it can be pretty brutal. Resale prices are the real brand report card.
Back to the secondary market.
Yes, a consistently high secondary market value is undeniable proof that the brand's engineered scarcity and its desire amplification are working perfectly. It provides a key market feedback loop on the brand's health and the success of its control strategy, often better than any internal audit could.
So, what does this all mean? We've traced this journey from a basic, fundamental human desire for status right through the precise, interconnected mechanisms of psychological, supply, and access control that sustain this colossal industry's aura. It seems like every single element from the, intimidation factor of the flagship score's architecture right down to the intricate processes of aftercare and repair.
It's all a deliberate, orchestrated part of a single continuous control infrastructure. Nothing is left to chance.
And the ultimate achievement of luxury, as our sources detail, seems to be designing products not just for today's customer, but almost for their descendants. You mentioned this generational durability architecture.
That's right. The idea that the item is meant to be inherited, passing status down through time, it becomes an heirloom, embedding the brand within family history.
So let's leave you with this final provocative thought, building on what we've just discussed about organizational control and that long-term view. If the fundamental goal of luxury is to signal status and endure across generations, consider this. How does the difference between family ownership, which can focus purely on that century-long legacy, and conglomerate ownership, which must balance legacy with quarterly investor growth, how does that fundamentally change a brand's ability to maintain that crucial long-term generational aura and its financial control?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Something to mull over the next time you encounter a brand built on meticulously controlled aspiration.